to the Football for Kids podcast with me, Darren Rees. This is a Patreon episode, as it is an episode that was chosen by the Patreon super listeners. In this episode, we're going to be speaking about an Arsenal legend, a Barcelona legend, and a France legend. Of course, in this episode, we will be speaking about the remarkable Thierry Henry. This episode will be split into two parts. Episode 1 will be released both on Patreon and on the normal podcast, and the second one will be available for super listeners who support the podcast on Patreon, and that will be out in the next few days. So, what are we waiting for? Let's get straight into it, shall we? Thierry Daniel Henry was born in France in 1977. And he said that he was told when he was born that his father held him up and said, "This boy is going to be an amazing football player." Thierry has said many times that people just don't believe it, but his auntie and uncle witnessed his father do it. Thierry grew up in the suburbs of Paris. In the area which Thierry Henry grew up, it was a bit of a rough neighbourhood where quite a bit of crime happened. It was a place where you had to be confident and you had to have your wits about you. But it was also a neighbourhood that was great for playing football. Almost all the kids on the streets were aspiring footballers, so there was always a game to play or someone to practice with. Not only was where he lived and grew up a great place to play football, but it was also a place for him to understand what the world was like. There were people of all different skin colours, all different religions, all different beliefs. Without him knowing it at the time, where Henry was living and growing up was teaching him about the world which laid outside where he lived. Henry said in a recent interview that if he was asked, he would happily grow up in the same place again. He would do it all over again. No questions asked, because it was a huge part of making him the man who he has become today. Thierry had a brother who was older than him, 7 years older than him to be precise, and his brother was fantastic at looking after him and looking out for him. If you've got a sibling, be like Thierry's brother and look out for them, because like Thierry Henry, even 30 or 40 years later, they will not forget it. Thierry Henry has memories of being around 5, 6 or 7 years old and his dad taking him to some local fields. He struck the ball and he struck it again. He struck the ball and then he did it again, over and over again. He remembers it well. And it was at this point that the journey began for Henry to become a great and successful footballer. When Henry was young, his parents decided that it would be better for them and the family if they separated. Thierry was no longer living in the same house as both his mum and his dad. But when he did see his dad and spend time with him, he almost always was doing something to do with football. Thierry Henry's dad was a tough man who didn't give out praise. Thierry was always looking to impress his dad, but his dad would constantly be focusing on the things he needed to do better or the things he didn't do so well. Thierry could score 9 goals out of 10 attempts, but his father would pick up on the goal that he didn't score, or the pass that he didn't make, and pretty much anything he didn't do. Because his dad was like this, he found himself constantly wanting to please his dad. Henry tried to please his teammates, please the coaches, and please everybody around him. Although Thierry Henry admits that the way that his dad was with him helped him as an athlete, it did not help him as a human, and there were parts of it that affected him in not such good ways. Over the past 175 episodes on the Football for Kids podcast, the concept of parents has come up on a few different occasions, and the way that they have acted or supported their children in being footballers. And from what we've learnt on the podcast on so many occasions, is that the approach that Henry's dad had with him certainly doesn't work with everyone. Thierry Henry didn't really get the opportunity to be a kid. He was constantly playing football, constantly training, trying out at academies and much more. He had to sacrifice a lot to become a footballer, and there was a lot of hours and a lot of hard work that went into it all. Because of how good Henry became, due to his extensive training and practicing with different teams in France and the work he was doing with his dad, Henry became an exceptional footballer. And he also became someone who the big clubs were talking about in France. When Thierry was 15 years old, he played in a game which ended 6-0. And guess who scored all 6 goals? Yep, you got it. Thierry Henry scored a double hat-trick. However, he remembers his dad asking him after the game whether he was happy with his performance. He wasn't quite sure how to answer it, because of what his dad was like. Henry hesitated and then told his dad that he was a little bit happy. And his dad told him that he shouldn't be happy, because he missed one shot, he scuffed a pass, he didn't do a cross properly, and the list went on and on and on. Thierry Henry got out of his dad's car. His body language said it all. His shoulders were down, his chin was facing towards the floor. His mother asked him, "What happened? Did you lose?" Thierry Henry said, "No, we won 6-0 and I scored all 6 goals." His mother knew that wasn't why he wasn't very happy, and Henry went on into the house. That is the end of part 1 of this fascinating story of Thierry Henry. Part 2 will be out in the next few days as we delve into the rest of his story, including his France playing days, Barcelona, and how the Arsenal manager, Arsene Wenger, became a father figure to him. So remember, if you know someone who loves football just as much as you do, then please tell them about Football for Kids. And whether you're playing football soon, watching it on the telly, or pitchside, I hope that you enjoy the game. See you next time.